The idea for the company started about 10 years ago when my wife and I were in business school. She was a venture capital investor in food companies and was actually a social impact investor. So she wanted to do something with the social impact element to it. I was born in Guyana and grew up on a farm there, but my family moved to New York when I was about 12 years old. I always wanted to come back to Guyana and do something preferably in agriculture. So we put those two ideas or those two areas together and came up with an agribusiness that focuses on food companies. In 2012, I moved back to Guyana and started the farm. It's actually the same year that we applied to Caribbean Compete. I think we applied under the diaspora window. Originally, the plan was to produce sort of non-indigenous vegetables, things like bell peppers, zucchini, things like that. After a while, we figured out that you really couldn't be competitive in that space for a lot of reasons. But what we did find is that companies wanted a reliable supply chain of tropical ingredients, both within the region as well as further out. So we began focusing on that, and the model evolved from there. I think in sort of looking at how Compete was helpful, it was helpful on many fronts, but the two that I'll point to is agriculture is a very capital-intensive business, so you have to have a decent amount of money up front if you want to do it at a commercial scale. But you also need money for technology and innovation. So I should mention that the thing that we do, one of the things that we do that's different is we don't know of a business in the region, in the Caribbean, that actually is a commercial farm that focuses on tropical food ingredients. So that business model exists in Central America. It certainly exists in the US. The largest tropical food ingredient company in the world is actually located in Princeton, New Jersey, of all places. So part of the innovation was this business model of actually committing to doing a commercial farm that does this out of the Caribbean. The second sort of aspect that was important to our business that Compete helped us with was the technology. Guyana has a clay coast where most of the agriculture is done, rice, sugar, things like this. And that clay has been brought by the rivers over millennia. But right behind that is a huge sand belt. And basically there's no agriculture that's being done on that. And that's where we're located. And the way we've been able to achieve commercial yields and use that land and really prove it out, I think commercially the first to do so, is in 2012, we brought the state-of-the-art drip irrigation technology from Israel. And then over the following years, with the help of some of the Compete funds, was to really work with soil scientists from the US, from the University of North Carolina, from the University of Florida, to really figure out how to grow on this soil. And so Compete has been really helpful in that way, in that we sort of came up with the upfront capital to do the agricultural equipment up front, which is a huge amount of the overall capital, but then Compete provided the additional capital to really work on the knowledge part of this and to really figure out how to achieve these yields, which we have. And so we're now at commercial yields. I guess the other thing is just having the lens of a diaspora is Compete was, when you apply for these things, it's a challenge fund or an incubator or something like that. As an entrepreneur, you don't have a lot of time. So knowing the requirements and knowing that there is a bit of administrative burden, the check size, if you will, if I can use a term from my former investment banking days, has to be worthwhile. And I think for the Diaspora Challenge Fund, the check size was $100,000, and that obviously is worthwhile. So I think it was worth the engagement, certainly, and worth the time. And we've learned a lot through the process.